Hey, how's it going? And welcome to Whisky Wins with me, Stuart. Now, before we get into the review, I'd just like to say if you want to show any support through the channel or anything like that, I've got a link to my Patreon below. Any help would be greatly appreciated. I've also got Whisky Whims challenge coins, which have Whisky Win on one side and Whisky Bin on the other side. So if you're doing a tasting or something and you've got a few of them, you can kind of put them on the glasses and decide which one's a Whisky Win and which one's a Whisky Bin. They're numbered 0 to 100, so you can choose your number as well. But anyway, we'll get down to the review. So this is Daftmill. It's 2009 summer edition, bottled in 2020. It's 10-year-old, 46% ABV, and it's a marriage of 4 casks, which were 3 bourbon and 1 sherry. So you can see it's quite lightly coloured, possibly like a dehydrated urine colour. That's very tasteful. Something like that. It's not a healthy pea colour. What else could we say? Maybe hay-like, maybe hay in colour. So it's £120 when this released. Obviously they sold out quite quick. A lot of people bought them. I think I won this. It was either Royal Mile Whiskey or Louvian. I think it might be Louvian's, and I wrote my name on it just to show that I was going to open it anyway. So yeah, I put my name on myself because I'm a bit sad. But £120 on the topic of Daftmill, it's because Daftmill's so exclusive, it's not really excusable in a sense, but it almost is. There's 1,875 bottles. That's quite small, quite a small batch, and it's really hard to get a hold of. £120, we could go on and discuss this over and over. It's a lot for a whiskey, but is it a lot for a Daftmill? I'll let you decide that. I can only comment what I think on the price and how it relates to my circumstance. So we'll get down to the palate, the nosing, the finish, and we'll decide whether it's a Whisky Win or a Whisky Bin. So there's a real fruit basket smell there. There's like apples, there's pears. There's a little creaminess there as well. It's almost like there's cereal as well. It reminds me of a cereal bar you get. I'll try to think what ones they are, but it's like a dried yogurt layer or covering over a cereal bar. Quite a chewy type thing, quite chewy, quite fruity, quite yogurty. But the yogurt's dried. That's the more aspect to this in the smell, like a dried yogurt or something. So I don't know if you've had something like that, but that's what this reminds me of. Reminds me of those chewy yogurty bars. Yeah, to go back on the kind of cereal note, I'm a more biscuity smell now. That nice kind of, it's almost creamy the way it gets made, but shortbread. It's not necessarily the dough to make the shortbread, but just the shortbread itself. But obviously a lot of butter and stuff goes into making shortbread. It's nice Scottish shortbread. Linking back, it's very creamy in the nose. Linking back to the creamy aspect, I want to say something like a vanilla cream, like maybe a whipped cream. Not necessarily a runny cream, but quite a thick cream smothered over some like waffles or something. Something nice and sweet. Once again, linking back to kind of malty cereal bread notes. So yeah, quite consistent. Other than the fruit and the vanilla, it's quite a consistent nose. There's nothing out of the ordinary here for Daftmill. There's nothing out of the ordinary in the sense of whiskey in general. Like there's nothing kind of throwing me off. It's quite pleasant, quite enjoyable, and I always feel that Daftmill has a very strong nose. So we'll get down to the palate. Initially, there is quite I don't want to say overwhelming, it's maybe a little overbearing. It's a real spiciness in the palate, and it's something that I'm not familiar with Daftmill. I don't usually get a real spice. It's more like a Highland spice, and I don't really get that in Daftmill, but it's quite evident here. There's a touch of mineral as well on the tongue, which once again I've not really experienced with Daftmill. I've not really found or discovered those mineral and spicy notes. There's kind of honey covered cereal or honey-covered granola, something along those lines. There's a touch of agave, it's like a little fruitiness. There's a little bit of citrus there, some hay, and also a real subtle tobacco element. Parma violets as well, for sure. Fragrant, aromatic, that I always seem to get with Daftmills. The Parma violet, this perfume, perfumey. So there's a better adjective for it, a perfume, aromatic kind of Parma violet smell, taste, which I think is quite consistent with Daftmill. So that palate's a lot different from what I'm used to, kind of thrown me off a little bit, but still enjoyable. The finish, I'd say the finish is medium. I'd say it's quite a subtle finish. It's not anything too bold. There's a little bit of spiced oak, spiced wood. It's quite drying. There's possibly some plum from the sherry cask. A little, yeah, like I said, a little drying at the end. Is there any creaminess coming through? I think there might be a little bit creaminess, but at the moment on the finish, it's just spices. Quite a lot of ground spices, dried spices. It's almost, if I can relate it to anything, make an analogy of some sort, paint a picture, I would probably say Christmas cake covered in custard. But the Christmas cake's probably the more dominant factor to this, dominant component. Not really the custard here. It's still a little creamy, but not as creamy as the palate or the nose. So that Christmas cake spices with a little bit of custard. That's how I'm going to try and explain it. Yeah, we'll go with that. So we'll get down to the three ways I rate my whiskey. And if you're new here, how I rate my whiskies are: would I buy it again? Do I think it's worth it? Which almost correlate. And would I recommend it? So we'll start with the money value, money side of things. I wouldn't buy this again. I've had it. It's not my favourite Daftmill. It's a little spicy. Not really. It's not off-putting spicy. Like, I do like spicy drams, but it's not what I'm looking for in Daftmill. I like it a lot more aromatic, fragrant, lowland-ish. This kind of feels more Highland, which isn't a bad thing. It's still a really tasty whiskey. So I wouldn't buy it again. Do I think it's worth it? It's such a hard topic to discuss when it comes to cost. I've been thinking about this a lot with the rising cost of whiskies, and my financial situation is different from your financial situation. So this might not be worth it to you. It might be worth it to me. So it's kind of a moot point almost, but I will comment on it. I don't think this is worth it. I don't think this one for me is worth it. Yes, it's exclusive, and that kind of obviously it justifies it to a point. But for what I'm looking for in a Daftmill, I don't think it's worth the £120 that I paid for the Daftmill. And let's remember, it's still 10-year-old. Would I recommend it? Yeah, I would recommend it. I think this is a different Daftmill. It's a more unique Daftmill. I've obviously got the sherry one, which is completely different to what I've had. I've had a lot of bourbon. But there's just something I'm not really relating with in this Daftmill. There's not something. I've had it for a while as well. I think it was a 2007 summer or 2008 summer, the 2007 winter. I had them and I went through them at a dramatic rate. This has taken me a lot longer too, and I was looking at it on the shelf thinking, why is that still up there? Why have I not finished that yet? And I think one of the reasons is I just don't relate with it as much as the other Daftmills. So I would recommend trying it. I think it's still a good dram. It should be a whiskey bin. I've got 2 out of 3, so I've got 1 out of 3 things, which is I would recommend it. Usually when I rate things, if it gets 2 out of 3 yeses, then it's a whiskey win. If it only gets 1 out of 3, then it's a whiskey bin. So by my logic, it should be a whiskey bin. But being the hypocrite that I am, I think it's on the fence. I mean, I'm going to use a coin actually. Someone did suggest this if I'm ever on the fence, and I'm not just using it. I'm not just using this as an excuse. But I think I am on the fence with this. So I'm going to flip the coin. I'm going to let fate decide because I am on the fence. I think it maybe, by my scoring process, it should be a whiskey bin, but I don't think it's a horrible whiskey. I don't think it's a bad whiskey. So it's almost, if I was giving it a score, it would be like a 5 out of 10. It's average, it's in the middle. So it's kind of on the fence there. But we'll flip the coin for excitement, and we'll see where it lands. It's a, don't know if you can see it, it's a Whisky Win from Fate, but like I said, from my scoring system it should probably be a whiskey bin. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the review. Yeah, that's I don't think I've got anything else to say. I don't have to say sorry. I was about to say sorry, but it is what it is. I'm not enjoying it as much as the others. So yeah, thanks for watching. I've been Stuart, this has been Whisky Whims. I'll see you later.